Where is he?
Okay, so in order to solve a quadratic equation, we have learned 3 methods. The first method doesn't always work. The first method doesn't always work. It only works for ax squared plus c. It doesn't work when you have that bx term, when you have that middle term. You can't use it. So it doesn't always work. We have our method of factoring, but it doesn't always work. Because if it's not factorable, then you can't factor to solve it. So this doesn't always work either. So it only works if it's factorable. It only works if you know how to factor. How about that? That too. And then we've got our third one, which is finding x-intercepts by graphing, which always works unless, I guess I'll say, only works if solutions are rational. And I'm just going to put like easy. That's not what rational means. But if we have a solution that's like a square root of 6 or something like that, which was on your last review, if you have a solution that's like a square root of 6, then on your calculator you're only going to find decimals, 2.447 or whatever it was, I don't remember, something around 2.44. That's as far as you're going to be able to find on your calculator. You're not going to be able to find an exact answer. You would have to round it. So this isn't the best method because it doesn't give you exact answers, unless they are like integers. What?
This is like a little bit unrelated, but how much plays were we allowed to like graph?
Yep. I said that. It was in the directions too. Okay. So those are the 3 methods that we've learned so far. We're adding on the 4th method today. It's called complete the square. And then this one will work every single equation. It will work for all. But I'll tell you that it's not fun with certain kinds. So I'll tell you that here. But it will work for every equation.
Is that a guarantee?
Yes. But it's more difficult when the b value is odd. It's more difficult when the b value, that middle value with the x, if that's an odd number, this becomes kind of messy and yucky. So, and there's going to be a 5th one, but we will not get that till like Friday. All right, let's learn what complete the square is. We're start out baby stepping. This is an exploration. We're going to solve x squared minus 16x plus 64 equals 100. We're going to solve that by square roots. Go ahead. How can we solve this by square roots? Nope. How can we solve this by square roots? You should tell me something I was talking about over here.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, listen.
What am I pointing to?
I guess you just subtract 16 with the
It won't work.
It has the bx term in it. So really, we should not be able to do this. Except, what if we factor the trinomial first? Factor it.
Is it really square rooting?
I haven't done square rooting yet. Factor it. See, when you solve by factoring, it has to say equals 0, so I'm not solving by factoring. I'm just asking you to factor this trinomial. Ignore the equals 100. Just factor that trinomial the way you've been factoring. How do we factor trinomials? Is there a GCF? Okay, what do I do next? X what? Look at the signs. They're both minus. Bless you. They're both 8? Okay. Not done yet. Hannah? I need to write it as squared. Okay, so now this technically is that form where we have the ax squared term and the c. We got rid of that bx by actually factoring this first, and because it's a perfect square, it factored nicely. If it wasn't a perfect square, you couldn't solve it that way. So that's why I knew we could solve it this way. Now, how can I solve it using square roots by once I got here? What should I do? If I square root both sides, what also do I need to do? Nope. I need to have a plus or minus. So I square rooted both sides. I put in a plus minus. I now have x minus 8 equals plus minus 10. What should I do next? Add 8. So I have x equals 8 plus or minus 10. I'm still not done. Because do you have the ability of adding 8 and 10 and then combining to a simplified answer? Yeah. So if you have that ability, then you should use it. So I'm going to be adding 8 plus 10. I'm also going to be adding, or subtracting, I should say, 8 minus 10. So I'm going to get 2 answers. 18 and negative 2.
Wait, so we have to do that, like, can we not end it off with x equals 8 or plus or minus 10?
No, because if you can add those together, then you will add those together to find your 2 answers. Remember, we're doing quadratics, so you're going to get 2 answers for every single one of these until we get to chapter 4. So enjoy it now. And you know what? If I went on Desmos, Desmos, here's Desmos. If I went on Desmos, that's what I was doing in pre-calc. It's like fun. Yeah. Okay, if I went on Desmos and I graphed this equation, x squared minus 16x plus 64, and to graph it I have to move that 100 over, so I'd subtract 100 now. Oh, I gotta fix my and I gotta fix this because I was using it in pre-calc. So if I graphed it on here, it should be a parabola because that's what we're studying. And where are the x-intercepts? Negative 2 and 18. See? So those are the answers. Yes, Daniel?
So for x equals 8 plus or minus 10.
Yeah.
How do you know it's going to be like 8? I mean, how do you know it's going to be 10 minus 8? How did this on the other side? Like,
how do I know what order to put these?
yeah.
Because the 10 is the one with the changing signs. I could reorder it and I could write positive 10 plus 8 and negative 10 plus 8. Like the 8 is plus because that's what I moved over. It's plus 8 for both of them. So I could reorder it, but I don't. I always write the number I moved over first, so I don't have to reorder it. Okay, so now there are 3 U-triumphs. All of these should end up just like the one above it, so they should go pretty fast with the factoring step. So first factor, then you do the square root, and then we find 2 answers. Yeah. Thanks for stopping me before I got went really far. Okay, so I forgot to unpause. I will go over this again on the next example, so it's on the video. But we're going to come up with a formula to find this C value that's going to help us with everything that we're doing today. I'll just do it on the next one. So we look at the next one. So some of you got this far, some of you did not. So I know this is going to be x plus and x plus if I factor it just looking at the signs. And then I look at the 8 in the middle. And for this to be perfect square, it's got to be 4 and 4. It's got to be the same number, exactly. So what did you do to find out that it was 4? You divided 8 by 2. Now, they're asking us to find the C value. So to find the C value, I have to do 4 times 4, which is like squaring 4, which is 16, yes. And then they also ask us to write this as a square of the binomial. So that's x plus 4 squared. So now to get a formula that works every time, we just did this twice in a row. How can I label the 8? What can I call the 8 that's been accepted, and we've done it a lot in this class so far? B. We're going to call that B. So if I took 8, or in the first page it was 14, and I divided it by 2, my formula is going to start out with B divided by 2. And then to get the C value, what did we do to B divided by 2? We squared it. So the 4s are B divided by 2, and then the C value itself is B divided by 2 squared. So both the B divided by 2 and the B divided by 2 squared, actually B divided by 2 right here too, also, they're both getting used. So let's do this one. I mean, you guys could do this the long way now, where we're going to say it's x and x, it's going to be minus and minus. What is it going to give us for 2? It's going to be 1 and 1. So I can factor that, x minus 1 squared. My C value would be negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. For this one, let's do the formula. Let's do B divided by 2 and then square it. So what's B? So if I take it and I divide it by 2, that doesn't reduce. Yeah, I can divide it, but I'm just going to leave it like this. And then after that, I square it. So this right here is going to be the number that is like in the parenthesis, the factored number. Actually, I can just write it right here. That'll be x minus 9/2 squared. So that's our factored number. And then square it to find the C. So when you square a fraction, it's like multiplying it by itself. I don't normally write this step out, but we really haven't done a whole lot of fractions in here. We're going to go straight across. So I will negative 9 times negative 9 and get what? 81 over 4. So that would be my C value. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to show you how to solve an equation by what's called complete the square. So this is going from start to finish, exactly what you do in your assignment. Solving by complete the square. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite it. And I'll rewrite it as x squared minus 10x. I'm going to leave some space here, and I'm going to move the 7 over by subtracting at both sides. Equals negative 7. Okay, there's my first step. What you doing on the computer? Okay, you have to know how to complete the square. So Desmos is not acceptable for this. It's okay to check your answer. Okay, next thing we're going to do is to complete the square. Before I complete the square, there has to be a square here. Okay? So I'm going to put plus a square. And if I do it to one side of the equation, I have to do it to the other side as well. There it is, plus a square. What is the square? That's the C value. So how are we going to find it? We're going to do, so I'll say over here, C equals, we're going to do B over 2 squared. So what is my B? So I do negative 10 over 2, which is negative 5, and I square it. And what goes in the box? In the square. Huh? 25. Because you got to square it. 25. And if I add it to one side, I have to add it to the other side, 25. Okay, so the first thing I did was move the 7 over and put boxes in. The second thing I did was find that C value with the formula you guys created. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to factor the left side, which we already practiced today. I know it's going to be a perfect square. I know it's going to be something squared. X, and it should be whatever we had right above it, whatever we had before the square, that's what goes right here, minus 5. See, that goes right there. And then the other side, we'll go ahead and add that together too. What is 25 take away 7? 18, thanks. Now, it's factored on one side. We have a number on the other. Yeah, just a number. So what? We're going to square root both sides. So step 4. Square root. What also do you have to do? Plus or minus. Remember that plus or minus. I need another color. So I'm going to square root both sides. I'm going to have a plus or minus. So I get x minus 5 equals plus or minus square root 18. What should I do next? Okay, so for 5, we're going to simplify the radical. So that's square root 18. Break it down to square root 9 and square root 2, which becomes 3 square root 2. X minus 5 equals plus minus 3 square root 2. Then what? Okay, so I'm going to finish solving it. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. I cannot add 5 with a 3 radical 2. There's no way possible that you can add those. They're not like terms. So this would be one where I do not have to go any further than this step. Now, if this was a whole number instead of a radical, I would go further, like our first few examples we did. So why would Desmos not work for this?
Because it don't work.
Why? It's gonna give you a horrible decimal, and I don't want the decimal. I want to know that you know how to simplify radicals.
So when it has those fancy like squiggly
Uh-huh.
things, does that hit the X intercept?
No, the fancy squiggly brackets mean that there's more than one answer.
Okay.
And so this is a collection of answers. Okay, that's what it means. All right, so let's do another one. Okay, for this kind, if the original first term is not equal to 1, we have 2 methods that we could do. One of those methods you'll learn on Wednesday. The method today is I'm going to GCF something, okay? So before we even start, because the first value is not equal to 1, I'm going to take out that value. And you know what? I'm not even going to take it out. I'm going to divide it from both sides. This is one method, but if it doesn't divide into nice numbers, you wouldn't want to do that. But the ones I gave you today divide into nice numbers. Okay. So we divide that out. We are left with x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0. Now we are going to solve this by completing the square. So I'm going to first move over the 5 and leave a space. So I'm going to subtract that 5 from both sides. I'm going to put in a square because we are completing the square. Okay? After I draw in that square, what do I do now? I need to find C. So C equals, we do B over 2 squared. Why do I have to keep writing this formula when it's at the top of my paper?
So we don't forget.
You need to keep writing it so you can remember it. Yeah. So we're going to do 4 over 2 squared. That gives me 2 squared, which is 4. So I'll put in 4 to both squares. Okay, so now we're going to factor it. And this will be x plus, and the number I get is the one before I squared it. 2. Just ignoring it so we can get finished with this. Okay. Okay. So now I have it where it's something squared equals a number. What's my next step? Square root with a plus or minus. They are back, aren't they? So now I have x plus 2 equals plus minus square root negative 1. Some of you are ahead of me. We need to simplify our radical. And what is the square root of negative 1? So we get plus minus I. And we're going to subtract our 2. So I get negative 2 plus or minus I. Can I add these together? No. You cannot, so I'm not going to. Could I graph this on Desmos and get the same answer? No. Not when it's imaginary. So if you do not learn how to do this, Desmos is not going to help you. Okay? So this is the 2 answers, and you just put your fancy brackets in and we're done with that one. Okay, we have like one more kind of example to do. It's the same stuff. It's just like kind of worded in a different way. I'm going to skip the student practice. Except for, maybe I'll look at number 11 real fast. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but just look at number 11 real fast. For number 11 or 12, they're the same. For number 11 or 12, what would I need to do first? Yeah, I would need to multiply that out first. And then if it starts with a number other than 1 today, you just divide it. As long as it divides evenly.
And if it doesn't?
If it doesn't, you're just going to have trouble, but all the ones I gave you do.
So there's nothing you do. It just sucks.
Yeah, pretty much. But there is another method. I just haven't taught it to you yet. That's next class. So that's where I would put my squares, and then I would finish from there. I'm not going to finish this one because of time. Okay? I just want to show you what you would do if you got that kind of question. All right. The last section we're doing today is write quadratic functions in vertex form. Do you remember vertex form?
Oh my god, yeah.
Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where h and k are the vertex. So you could easily find the vertex and graph this using transformations. So vertex form is pretty important. So I'm going to show you how to take this equation and write it in vertex form easily. And we're going to do it using complete the square. So you see where this y is? When we did complete the square before, that was a 0. But it's not a 0, it's a y. So I'm going to keep it as y, but that's on the other examples, that was the 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 18 to both sides first. So I'll have y minus 18 and I'll have x squared minus 12x, and to both sides I'm going to add that square. Doesn't matter if you add the square in front or at the end, you're just adding a square to both sides. Yep. Okay. Bye. Hannah, are you leaving?
Yeah.
Assignment is
Oh my god, have fun. Wait,
where's she going?
Where's she going? I'm getting my cat stuff. Oh, yeah. Ask them to keep it.
Ew, it's so gross.
Yeah, ask them to keep it so then you can smell it and remember how bad
You know your arm's going to be smaller from the, yeah. Just wait. Okay, guys, we're not done. Right? Not done. So we put the squares in. What do I have to do to find my C value?
Oh,
What is the formula? B?
over 2 square.
Okay, so where's B? Negative 12. So when I take negative 12 divided by 2, I get negative 6 squared. So my C value is 36. So I'm going to put that in both boxes. Which side am I going to factor up here?
So the right side.
Yeah. These are just kind of switched around from what it was before. So over here I'm going to add the negative 18 and the 36 and I'll get y plus 18. On this side I'm going to factor it. It's going to be something squared. It's going to be x. And then this number here is what goes in that spot. So minus 6. It is a 36 minus 18. Okay. Now this has to be in vertex form. So we're not actually solving. We just have to have it so y is by itself.
So we just place the 18 over there a little bit.
Okay, now I'm done. What is our vertex?
Negative 6, negative 8.
No.
Wait, actually.
What is our vertex? What do we know about if it's in the parentheses?
Oh, positive 6.
It has to be opposite. So positive 6, negative 18. Remember I told you this is going to come up in every single chapter.
You were right.
I am right. Always right.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Do I not have another one?
I'm not done.
Oh, I'm sorry, here. But do I not have another one of those examples? Huh, okay.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, example 6. This is a bad.
Oh, mine. Oh, I didn't have a back. Where's mine? Okay, we'll start example 6. I don't know where my back went.
Can you die, guys? Can you die? She's coughing.
That's so
You never heard that?
funny. Oh my god.
Okay, one more. Last one. Which one should we do? No, not example 6. Out of these 3, which should we do? Sorry. I just want to do one more of those.
14. Actually, no. 13. Actually,
It doesn't matter. Let's do 14. Okay, so you're going to first subtract 4. And I'm going to have y minus 4 plus a box, square, equals x squared plus 6x plus a square. What goes in the square is our c value. b divided by 2 squared. 6 divided by 2 squared. 3 squared. 9. So now I have y plus 5 equals, and I'm going to factor this side to be x plus whatever that number is that I just had before I squared it, 3 squared. Now we're not solving, we're putting in vertex form. So I'm going to add that, or subtract that 5. And I get y equals x plus 3 squared minus 5. And then I have my vertex. Where's the vertex? -3, -5. That's all that's on the assignment so far. So that's why I didn't do example 6 yet. The assignment is a worksheet.
Alright, so this is homework that's due Wednesday?
Yeah.